Hey guys! Wow, it's been a little while. In case you forgot, I'm Sarah, and this time I'm here with another rare piece of history, the Royal Annals of the Old Kingdom of Ancient Egypt. A collection of fragments, the most prominent of which is the Palermo Stone. This work has been the subject of numerous studies to try and figure out the order of the kings in the Old Kingdom. So grab a hard hat and let's get down into the dark to plumb the depths of human history. This is The Memory Hole. So what are the Royal Annals? They are a series of records kept on the duties of the pharaohs from the time of Narmer to the 5th dynasty. They were originally carved in black diorite around the time of the 5th dynasty, which occurred between the years 2392 and 2283 BC. Most of it was lost in the passage of time. However, there are 7 known remaining fragments which have popped up over the years. The first of these to be found was the Palermo Stone, which was first picked up by a Sicilian lawyer by the name of Ferdinand Guidano in the year 1859. There are also 5 fragments at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. The first 4 were acquired between the years 1895 and 1914, while the 5th was acquired by the museum in 1963. There is also a 7th fragment that was acquired by archaeologist Sir Flinders Petrie in 1914, which is currently held by the Petrie Museum of University College London. They've been the subject of any number of translations and studies by many prominent archaeologists over the years. But finding a complete translation that was widely available was a little difficult. And if you recall from my previous video, I discovered that the full price for a recent translation of the complete set will cost you about as much as a mid-range couch. While I don't begrudge the author wanting to make money, unfortunately a self-directed academic like me doesn't have that much money in my book budget. So instead, I decided to make a trip to the nearest convenient university library that had a copy and was willing to lend it to an unaffiliated seeker of self-education. In this case, that was the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It cost me the gas for an 8-hour round trip and a library card, so less than half of what it cost to get a legal copy on my Kindle. Fortunately, I was able to save myself a second trip by recruiting a wonderful family member who was going to be in the area to help me get the book returned once I was done with it. Adventures in self-education, people. You will go places. But as a result, I would like to use this opportunity to advocate for making primary sources more widely available. We live in the information age. I should only have to drive 4 hours for your entertainment pleasure. Back to the point. Originally, the fragments of the Royal Annals are believed to have been kept in a double-sided wall wherever they were sitting, and there have been a number of different interpretations of which fragments went where. There was also some consideration of whether or not there are certain parts that are fake. It's unclear exactly where the annals stood, or if they were all carved at the same time. But according to Toby A. Wilkinson, who authored the translation I'm using, it has been speculated that it might have stood either at the Temple of Ra at Heliopolis, or a temple in Memphis, possibly the Temple of Ptah. The various fragments have had some adventures of their own through time. The first Cairo fragment, for instance, was at one time used as a doorstop, but it's also possible they came from 2 different stones. All this information came courtesy of a handy-dandy little essay at the beginning of the book, where Wilkinson went through a play-by-play of who had done translations before he did, and how they did them, which was pretty interesting. It was also pretty cool, given our previous exploration of the pyramid texts, to run across Gaston Maspero in the mentions. Wilkinson also takes lots of notes about the text throughout, and has a rather huge bibliography in the back for all you Egyptology enthusiasts to check out, in multiple languages. Unfortunately, I can't read French or German very well, beyond guessing from words that look kind of similar to their English counterparts, but out of the English titles, I definitely added a few to later entries on my reading list. Plus, there's detailed illustrations of the fragments in the back that are very nicely done. He obviously put in an exhaustive amount of work, probably way more than I would have learned about otherwise, so kudos to you, Mr. Wilkinson. I really appreciate the attention to detail. The records themselves are pretty simple. They deal with the various functions of the pharaoh and some of his royal duties in given years, but the one detail that is always recorded was the height of the Nile. Unsurprising, since we know that the flooding of the Nile was the primary thing enabling the ancient Egyptians to grow food. Though the information itself is not expanded on very much, I did learn a lot of interesting peripheral information from Wilkinson's notes. For instance, I learned that Egyptologists believe the Egyptians adopted their 365 and a quarter days calendar as early as the reign of Jer of the First Dynasty, which was around 3000 BC. Also, apparently the pharaoh very possibly had a festival where he would ritually kill a hippo. There were a number of festivals during the years over which the pharaoh presided, including the Sed festival, which seems to have been a kind of jubilee, and the Jet festival, which is believed to have involved the pharaoh pulling a boat around to ritually represent the passage of Ra through the sky during the day. He was the chief priest in religious cults, and would preside over the founding of new temples and religious functions. The annals also speak of ritual or actual campaigns against other nations. For instance, during Snefru's reign, which preceded Khufu's in the line of succession, Wilkinson translated these lines on the Palermo Stone this way, on page 141. Building a 100-cubit, adoring the two lands boat, and 60 16er royal boats of cedar, smiting Nubia, bringing in tribute 7,000 male and female live captives, 200,000 sheep and goats, building the wall of the south and north land, called the Mansions of Snefru, bringing 40 ships laden with pine wood, 2 cubits, 2 fingers. For a little context, Khufu, also known as Cheops, is the pharaoh who commissioned the Great Pyramid of Giza during the 4th dynasty, and his reign was believed to have at least spanned between 2589 to 2566 BC, though some believe he ruled for longer. While Wilkinson says it's unclear whether the information in the Royal Annals should be taken literally, as some of it may simply be how the pharaohs wished to remember it, it is still interesting to know how they saw things. It's also interesting to see how they viewed the rest of the world. One common habit Wilkinson discusses was the propensity of the Egyptians to choose epithets, often pejorative, for the people living on their borders. They were calling the inhabitants of Sinai the sand dwellers, and those living in the east around the Jerusalem-Palestine area the bowmen, and some of their enemies were often referred to as the dog people. So there you have it. We've been referring to our enemies as dogs, probably about as long as we've been domesticating them. According to Wilkinson, though, the translation could also mean that which is not. So, extrapolating from that, a dog person could also be interpreted as an un-person. So make of that what you will. Another feature of the Royal Annals is a regular account of censuses for various purposes, such as the accounting of how many cattle or people or other assets the Egyptian government could tax. In fact, you'll find a regular reference in the text to the counting of various items. As with the other things we've looked at, there is still quite a lot we don't know about the annals and the stuff around them, but that kind of goes with the territory when it comes to fragments. Overall, it was an interesting piece of history to look over, and in spite of the effort I went through to get hold of a copy, I'd still consider it a privilege. One of the great benefits of using this text for the video was that Wilkinson provided so much outside information, I hardly needed any external sources to understand anything. But while searching for that complete copy, I also happened across some interesting essays that I'll link below, in case anyone wants to read them, or any other useful links I may deem to add later. Next video, we'll be heading back to Samaria in order to take a look at a boulder, a stele, and one of the earliest known examples of a legal code. Hopefully the next video won't take nearly as long to get out. But until next time, like, share, subscribe, stay curious, and keep digging. See you soon!